Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Here is your class of Pakistan Studies of HSSC 2. I am your teacher, Mrs. Sadia Batool, and today our topic of discussion is illegal movement. So students, first of all, here we will discuss the contents of lecture. Today's presentation will cover the following contents. Number one, first of all, we will be discussing the definition of movement. Number two, brief definition of illegal movement. Number three, background of illegal movement. Number four, services of illegal movement. In this context, first of all, we will be just discussing about the educational services of illegal movement rendered by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and number two, political services rendered by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. At the end, we will be just talking about the conclusion that which type of movement was illegal movement and how it had affected the educational and political structure of Pakistan. The objectives of lesson. After completion of this topic, students will be able to understand number one, the movement's definition and its importance. Number two, historical background of illegal movement, that in which of the circumstances the illegal movement was started and why it was the requirement of the time that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan started such a movement. Number three, services of illegal movement or Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Number four, students will be able to understand that what was the role of illegal movement in the freedom movement of Pakistan. Number five, historical importance of illegal movement even in this modern age. That once again here the students will be able to understand that how this movement was important and what was the eminent role of illegal movement that this movement had just put on the circumstances. So let's students start from the definition of the movement. First of all, what is a movement? So in your textbook, actually the movement's definition is not being discussed. So here all of you are requested to write it down that the act or process of moving from one place to another is called a movement. Second definition, when a group of people is united. When a group of people is united on some specific objectives and with their unity they achieve these objectives or goals. Their united efforts are called movement. So, hopefully here you will be able to understand that what is a movement. Now come on the brief introduction of illegal movement. Illegal movement, students, was actually a movement that was started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan after War of Independence 1857 for the betterment and upgradation of the Muslims of Indo-Pak subcontinent. As you know that after the War of Independence 1857, the circumstances were very crucial for the Muslims of Indo-Pak subcontinent, and educationally, politically, religiously, even Muslims were suffering a lot. So that when the power was being exercised by the British Crown and whole of the political structure was designed by the British government, so it was the time of difficulty, it was the time of great tragic for the Muslims of Indo-Pak subcontinent. So in these circumstances, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had decided to start a movement for the upgradation and the betterment of the Muslims. So students, after the definition of the movement after the brief introduction of the Aligarh movement. The third topic is historical background of Aligarh movement. In this context, once again in your textbook, there is a paragraph written as the HSSC2 board requirements are not to write the paragraph writing. So here I am giving you some of the headings, and you are requested to please attempt the historical background of Aligarh movement with these headings. So in this context, first of all, the very first heading of historical background of Aligarh movement will be number 1, arrival of East India Company in subcontinent. Number 2, Mughal dynasty in subcontinent. Number 3, weaknesses of Mughal Empire. Number 4, interference of company in local governmental affairs. Number 5, War of Independence 1857. And number 6, Aligarh movement by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So this is the historical background. Now let's discuss all the points in detail. First of all, arrival of East India Company in Indo-Pak subcontinent. Students, in 16th century, an industrial revolution was observed in Europe. And after this industrial revolution, actually the European traders were in search of the markets for their products. For the better marketing, for the better trading purposes, they just had searched India as the best market for their products and their industry. So in 1608, East India Company's trader came into subcontinent, and they had started their business in subcontinent. As far as the subcontinent was concerned, so this was the time period of Mughal empire in India, and Mughals were actually enjoying the power from Zahiruddin Babur till Bahadur Shah Zafar. This whole time period is considered as the time period of Mughal empire in India. In 1608, when East India Company's trader came into subcontinent, the time period and the governmental administration of the Mughals was very strong. So East Indian Company's traders, they just had to make the very good relations with the Mughal empires. For this purpose, they had made a lot of treaties, a lot of pacts to the Mughal empires. First of all, they had taken the permission for building their forts in India. Then they had taken the permission of keeping their own army, and then the weapons for the safety and security of their trading products and their traders. From 1608 till 1707. From 1608 till 1707, this was the whole time period when East India Company's traders had engaged themselves into the local trading affairs. But after the death of Aurangzeb Alamgir in 1707, the whole of the governmental structure was disturbed, as the successors of Aurangzeb Alamgir were not able to run the governmental affairs of India. What were the reasons why they were not capable to run the governmental administration? Because they were very weak actually in running the governmental affairs. They were busy in their own interests. They were not taking any typical or the administrative interest in the governmental affairs of India. So uh, just East Indian companies, traders had taken the benefit of the situation, and they entered themselves into the political affairs of Indo-Pak subcontinent. What they did, that they simply turned themselves from the trading affairs to the political affairs, and from 1707 till 1857, this was the condition of the India, that symbolically the Mughal kings were enjoying the power, but as far as the real state power was concerned, this was exercised by the traders of East India Company. In 1857, the situation was this, that whole of the political power was in the hands of East Indian Company's traders, and actually they were running the governmental business of India. But the attitude was very hostile towards the local community. So, what was decided by the local public, that a final decision should be taken and a war should be fought against the traders of East India Company, so that the locals could enjoy the political power of the India. So, War of Independence was actually a pre-planned war that was designed by the locals of India. By the locals of India means Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs. They all had participated in this war. So, students, the war was fought, but unfortunately, what was the result of the war? That after this war, whole of the political administrative structure was taken by the British government, and locals of Indo-Pak subcontinent were badly failed in the War of Independence 1857. Now the new emperors, new kings of the India were actually the Britishers. Now they were enjoying, they were exercising the real political power or the real administrative power of the India. In these circumstances, actually whole of the political and administrative structure of the subcontinent was changed. Now India was considered as a colony of Indo-Pak subcontinent, and it was directly under the supervision of the British Parliament. So, after taking the power in the hands of Britishers, the circumstances of India were very crucial for the locals of Indo-Pak subcontinent, especially for the Muslims. And what was the reason behind this? That number one, British Parliament was thinking that Muslims are directly responsible for the War of Independence 1857, and Muslims were thinking that British Parliament or the Britishers had snatched the political power of India from the hands of Muslims. So they were blaming each other actually, and the relations between the Muslims and the Britishers were very were not good actually, and in these type of circumstances, Aligarh movement was started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan for the betterment and upgradation of the Muslims of India. So here students, with these all headings, you are supposed to write the historical background of Aligarh movement. Here, once again, keep one thing in your minds, that please don't write paragraph in historical background of Aligarh movement. You're supposed to attempt the historical background of the movement with these points and headings. Now the next thing is about the services of Aligarh movement. Educational services, first of all, here we will discuss, and once again I am requesting you that in your textbook educational and political services are mixed, and here I have categorized the educational services separately and political services separately. So you are please supposed to attempt the question according to this categorization. First of all, here we are going to discuss about the educational services. So following are the educational services of Aligarh movement and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, which had played an eminent role for the betterment of the Muslims. Number 1, first educational service. Here we are going to discuss. First educational service of Aligarh movement is the establishment of the institutions of Moradabad and Ghazipur. Establishment of the institutions of Moradabad and Ghazipur. So students, write the detail of this point, that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, after War of Independence 1857, he had established the very first educational institution in 1859 in Moradabad, and in 1862 he had established an institution at Ghazipur. Both of these institutions were very primary institutions that were established by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And what was the purpose why these institutions were established? Number 1, to promote the English language. Number 2, for the promotion of the scientific education for the Muslims of Indo-Pak subcontinent. So after the War of Independence, this was the matter of a great courage, in fact, to establish these type of institutions, because it was considered religiously a sin for the Muslims to even think about English language after War of Independence. Number 2, scientific society. Scientific society. Well students, from Moradabad, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was transferred to Ghazipur in 1862. Here he had established Ghazipur Institution. 2 years later, he laid the foundation of a society that was called Scientific Society, for translation named as the Scientific Society of Aligarh. He got translated the Western classics and works of well-known the Western achievements in arts and science, their laws and systems of governance, and their virtues into Urdu. Well students, in 1863, the Scientific Society was established, and this society, the basic purpose of establishing this society was to translate all of the scientific knowledge into the local languages of India, so Muslims could better understand the scientific knowledge. Number 3, MAO school. What does it mean? Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental School. Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental School was established in 1875. Here, very slowly, students, I am just giving you the points about the dates and the eminent personalities. So these dates and the names of the eminent personalities may be asked into your paper. So you should be able to attempt the MCQs and the short questions. MAO School stands for Mohammedan Anglo Oriental School, that was established in 1875 by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And actually this school was just established for the purpose once again to promote the English language and the scientific education. And keep one thing in your mind, students, that in 1869 Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had visited England for the purpose just to have a very keen analysis of the educational system of the Britishers, so that he could implement all those standards of education which he had observed in England on the patrons of Oxford and Cambridge. So when he returned home, he just decided to establish a school for the Muslims of Indo-Pak subcontinent in 1875, and MAO school was actually established on all the standards of the Western educational system. MAO College. Point number 4, MAO College. MAO College was established in 1877. Actually, the school was upgraded after 2 years as college by Lord Lytton. And this school was once again a very great achievement of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had the wish that this college should be upgraded as university, but this dream was not come true in his life. The last point, Mohammedan Educational Conference. Mohammedan Educational Conference was established in 1886, and it was consisted a group of people, students, who could convey the people of India, especially the Muslims of India, to who can convey basically the Muslims of India to take the education in English and for the promotion of the scientific education. As I have told you earlier that this was religiously considered a sin for the Muslims that to take education in English, or the think about even about the scientific education. So that Mohammedan Educational Conference was consisted the smaller group of the peoples who were given the assignments that they had to go to the city to city, to village to convince the Muslims that this is the requirement of the time to take their education according to the modern standards. So here these were the all educational services of Aligarh movement rendered by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Now let's discuss the next point. Well, students, the next topic of your lecture is political services of Aligarh movement. Following are the main services of Aligarh movement that were rendered by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and these are called the political services. Number 1, removal of misunderstanding between Muslims and Britishers. So, students, after War of Independence 1857, the very important task that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had worked on it was the removal of misunderstandings between the Muslims and the Britishers. because after war of independence they both were blaming each other for the new political scenario. And on one hand, Britishers were thinking that this mutiny had created just because of Muslims, and they are responsible for this war of independence, and they had actually gathered all the locals of India on a some on one political platform. And on other hand Muslims were thinking that Britishers are responsible for the changed political structure of India, of India, and Muslim Britishers are responsible for the changed political structure. Why they were thinking this? That definitely from Zahiruddin Babur till Bahadur Shah Zafar, not only from this whole Mughal dynasty, but from Muhammad bin Qasim till Bahadur Shah Zafar, Muslims were the actually people who had taken the who had exercised actually the British the governmental power of the India. So now British traders had snatched the political power from them, and definitely they were thinking that Britishers are responsible for whole of the decline of Muslims. So this was after war of independence, when the power was being enjoyed by the Britishers. So this was the requirement of the time that the removal of misunderstandings should be done, and on both sides the relations must be very better, so that Muslims could live a better life. Number 2, promotion of Western education in subcontinent. For the achievement of very first political service of the Aligarh movement, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had promoted the Western education, not only the Western education but the Western language English as well in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. So it was a matter of great dare and courage after the War of Independence 1857 that he after the war of 1857 that he had taken the steps for the promotion of Western education in India. Number 3, to safeguard and preserve political rights of Muslims. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan uh, was a very famous leader of India, and he had actually worked a lot for the preservation of the political rights of the Muslims. He had done a lot of work for it, and he had actually conveyed all the important demands of the Muslims to the British government in a very wisely way. Number 4, to convey the constitutional demands of Muslims to the Britain government. We have discussed it earlier. Number 5, two nation theory. What is two nation theory? Students, two nation theory is actually a difference between the two nations or the two groups. So two nation theory with the reference of Indo-Pak subcontinent, what does it mean? That Muslims and Hindus are totally different from each other in their religion, in their beliefs, in customs, values, traditions. They are very different. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was the very formally he was the very first leader after War of Independence 1857 who had just discussed very openly the fact of the two nation theory, and he had conveyed the Muslims that Muslims are very different from Hindus and the other nations, so they should understand their identification and about their bases. Number 6, Urdu Hindi controversy. Urdu Hindi controversy was started in 1867 from the city of Banaras and from the province of Banaras, sorry. And this Urdu Hindi controversy was started just for the demand of the Hindus that the Urdu should be eliminated and the Hindi should be introduced. Hindi should introduced as the national and official language of India. So, from 1867 till 1900, this movement was very rapidly was promoted, and in 1900, at the end, British government was compelled to take the decision for the announcement of the Hindi language as the official language of national language of the India. So that Urdu Hindi controversy is considered as a great tragic for the Muslims, and by this Urdu Hindi controversy, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had cleared to the Muslims that Hindus are not the loyal nation to the Muslims. Their interests are not same. Muslims and Hindus had very different interests. So Muslims should think about themselves and their national interests. So, Urdu Hindi controversy was a political service of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and Aligarh movement. Through this Urdu Hindi controversy, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had actually promoted the two nation theory once again for the betterment of the Muslims of India. And the last point here in political services, you will add students that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had always restricted the Muslims that they should not take part in the politics of agitation. They should concentrate on the educational basis. They should think about their future. They should, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan had just had just conveyed the message to the Muslims that they should think about their requirement of time and the demands of the time, so Muslims could develop themselves in a better way, and they should keep themselves away from the politics of education. Here at the end, students, you will be just adding these points into conclusion that Aligarh movement was actually a very great historical movement that was started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, that was primarily started in an educational venture. It was based on the concept that in education alone lay the solution of all problems faced by the Muslims. So, you can conclude Aligarh movement that this was a great movement of the time that was started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and through this movement, actually Muslims had started their very good, their very strong educational basis, and they had actually taken the political awareness through this movement, and actually this was the platform of the Mohammedan Educational Conference from where the Muslim League was introduced, and just with the help of Muslim League and the leaders of Mohammedan Educational Conference, the Pakistan movement was able to achieve its objectives. So we can say that Aligarh movement was the movement of the time which had very strong impacts on the politics of subcontinent, not only at that time, but this movement had a very strong impact on the educational system of Pakistan till now.